Okay, for part 2, for your silkscreen, you're going to need a cup of water, maybe about halfway, with the paintbrush that I provided, unless you said you had one. You're also going to need, this white cup has glue in it. If you don't have this, this means that you said you already had glue. I do have glue. However, just be aware, if you're going to use your own glue, add a little bit of water, dilute it just a little bit. I diluted this glue just a little bit so it's not super thick. I'm also going to have, you can put newspaper. I have just computer paper here under my work surface. So I'm going to open my glue. I have my screen from yesterday. Now the one thing, okay, so this is, you know, I traced this like this. So this was laying flat. Now when I'm going to use my glue to paint over the negative space design. So when I glue though, when I paint, I don't want this to be flat on the table because the glue is going to make my screen stick to the table. So I'm going to flip it the other way because now the surface is raised. You can see that's where it's flat. This part, there's like an indent. You can see on the side there. That's the flat side right there. This is the indent. So if I flip it this way, it raises my screen, my pantyhose, up. So now I'm going to take my paintbrush and get my brush nice and gooey. And if you're not, if you have a lot of detail and you're not that strong at doing detail, maybe just first get comfortable painting over the outside where there's larger areas. And make sure that it's filling in so that there's no sort of holes in your pantyhose. You just want a nice thin coat. That's why I watered it down. You don't want the glue to be thick and bumpy. This brush that I'm using is kind of soft. So I may go ahead and use the back end of my brush to get in those areas where it's really small, like the nostrils. And notice I'm putting glue over all the areas that I drew for the negative space with the marker. So I'm going to go in there and I'm just spreading out the glue. If you have a toothpick, I can't remember if I gave you guys a toothpick or maybe even the nail, 'cause, well, the nail might snag the pantyhose, but something really skinny to get in any tight areas if you have tight areas. So I'm just getting the tight areas with the back of my brush, and I'll zoom in here for a minute so you can see a little bit better. Let me just get in there. And you can even see the cast shadow from my glue so that you know that I'm not flat against my table. So I'm going to just continue to film, and I can skip ahead. You don't necessarily need to watch me paint my entire thing, but I will film it just so you can see how I approach it, because I like to rotate my piece, because when I paint I use the edge of my brush to get sharp edges, or sometimes the point of the brush. And again, this is your test piece, so if it's not perfect, that's okay. I'm only grading this when you print from it as a homework grade. There's no rubric involved. So make your mistakes on this, learn from them. I always say I want you to fail first because that's how you learn. Make your mistakes, don't stress over it, just do your best. If you have questions, ask, but otherwise, just go for it. No fear here. Happy accidents, right? It's Bob Ross. Happy little trees, happy little dogs. So I tend to like to do all the details first, like all the straight edges, and then go in and fill in with the glue like that. But again, I can see where the edge of the glue is. I like to have smooth edges, but this is actually new for my advanced students. I will show you guys later how my advanced students, how we do it normally in the classroom. We cut stencils like Banksy, how he does his graffiti or street art. And I'm actually going to glue all the way to the edge here. You don't really have to go too crazy, because unless your design goes to the edge. And if the drawing that you did is too big for your embroidery ring, just do a section of it. I think most of you did small drawings though, so I think we're okay. I'm going to go over those edges again. Yeah, I'm not crazy about this brush. If you have multiple brushes at home, maybe experiment with different brushes. I'm just going to go with it for today. Oops. Notice I'm also dripping. It's another reason to have newspaper or something down on your desk so you don't get glue all over the place. Now you can also see why when we did our negative space and drawings, how simplifying it makes it easier, because I don't have a lot of little details. You know, I don't have texture, fur texture, or a lot of intricate. So if you want to simplify this, just because, oops, and I didn't want to paint over that, but you know what? I'm just going to let it go. This is my happy accident, and now I know. If you do get glue in an area, I would say if you want to remove it, try to do it while the glue is still wet. And again, I'm going to kind of clean that off and see if I can remove it. Maybe with my water too. While the glue is still wet, get in there with water maybe. We'll see if that'll work. I'm not sure. This is an experiment for me too. Okay. My first year of teaching, I was with the little kids at Edison, and we would go outside and we would pick leaves off the ground, and we would put the leaves under the screen and do silk screening that way. Similar to our stencil, but they didn't have to create the stencil. They used the leaf, the flat leaf, as a stencil to mask out where the ink will go, which is what we're doing, is we're creating a mask so the ink prints around or inside the mask. And you'll see once we do this. For my students that were not very good or confident with their X-Acto knife skills, this is a great alternative to get more details in your work if you're good at painting and if you have a good brush. Again, I'm not crazy about this brush. I would use a harder bristle. This one's really soft because the bristles of the brush are just moving around. Oh, sorry, I just realized you can't see all that. Okay, well, good thing. So I'm feeling pretty good. I might wait for this to dry. This is the underside. I'm gonna keep this laying this way. I'm gonna wait for this to dry and see if I need to go back and touch up any areas. But otherwise, when you're done, make sure you put this brush in the water, clean it off really well. I might even let it sit overnight just to make sure. Mr. Walder would always say the best way to test your brush if it's clean is brush it on your face. That means you know you're going to make sure that's nice and clean. If you don't do this, then the glue is going to dry in the brush and then your brush is pretty much ruined. So I would get it really nice and clean. Maybe even use dish soap if you have it downstairs. But at this point, we're going to stop there.